If you're watching this, you're probably struggling in life right now and you need a bit of hope. Hope's not always easy to come by. And this video isn't just about a general hope. This video is about creating a new you, because where you're at isn't where you want to be. Now that doesn't mean in a business sense, that doesn't mean I have career goals of being 6'5" in finance. This is more of, I don't like who I've become and I feel trapped in who I am, and how in the world can I be something better? This is the story of Aldonza the whore, who became a noblewoman. This story is from the book, the movie, the musical of Don Quixote, the Man of La Mancha. But he's not going to be our main focus in this. He's the main reason for all this, but he's not the main focus. We're going to focus on Aldonza the whore. You see, the brutality of life drove Aldonza to this life of prostitution. It drove her to abandon what a lot of people would call a sense of morality, especially in that time. As a child, as a baby even, she was abandoned by her mother. She never knew who her father was, and she was basically left to die on her own. And as she grew up, she decided it was better to sacrifice her morality and her body than sacrifice her life. She felt she had no other choice, and it didn't just end there. As she grew into this life of depravity, she realized more and more that she could make a lot of money doing this. It wasn't just for survival anymore, it became thriving. But it created this empty pit inside of her. An empty pit where she didn't value herself. We may not choose a life of prostitution, but I feel like life has beaten a lot of us down to the point where we choose a lot less than who we could be. We give up on life, and we give up on our dreams and our hopes because we've made mistakes, because we've fallen short of who we thought we should be. And when we're younger, we have this big vision we have for our lives. In the end, nothing happens with it. We become couch potatoes, living for the weekend, just making our way through work, just existing. And then if you keep doing that, you stop even living for the weekend, and all that's left in your life is merely existence. If that's where you are right now, I want you to know there's more options, that this isn't the only thing you have to looking forward for you. This may be a story that we're talking about, but this story tells a truth that may transform your life if you're in this position. You see, one day while Aldonza was serving food at the tavern, checking out her prospects and kind of gathering her clientele, this madman named Don Quixote comes waltzing in, and he sees her. He sees Aldonza the whore, and he calls her by another name. He calls her Dulcinea, and she asks, what does that mean? And he starts to tell her, it is the woman he dreams of. Not sexually like a lot of these other men, but instead, this is a vision of a life that she could have, of being pure, of being honest, of living a life more than just being a tavern wench. A noble woman who has never once defiled herself. At first, Aldonza thinks he's just flirting with her. But as this goes on, she realizes he genuinely thinks that she is worthy of the title of Dulcinea. Aldonza makes it very clear that she is corrupt beyond redemption, that she is evil, that she's not worth more than anything but being laid flat on her back. But Don Quixote, no. He refuses to accept this. He refuses to accept the reality of the situation, just like he refused to accept that the giant he was fighting was actually a windmill. And this started to break Aldonza. She was used to being used, beaten, talked down to, flirted with just to get her in bed, just to get a better deal. But no. Don Quixote speaks life, speaks this vision into her, and it echoes in her head and reminds her of who she could have been if she hadn't made certain choices. And she hates him for it. The echoes in her mind, those voices keep telling her she is not worthy of this love and adoration. And she tells him to quit, she tells him to leave, but he refuses. The simple thing is, he just made her feel special again. This man with an impossible dream. She ends up following him and travels with him. She fights this new vision of her life for quite a while, and eventually she does take on that name, even after his death. But what does this have to do with us? We're not mad men or mad women. We may not even be prostitutes. At least hopefully we're not. But if you're anything like me, you're settling for far less than you could be. Because you're ashamed of who you've been. You're ashamed of the mistakes you've made, the people you've hurt, how you've even betrayed yourself. But in those moments, that's when the truth behind Don Quixote truly shines. It doesn't matter who you've been, you can choose to be something better. Now, that doesn't mean your old relationships will magically heal. It doesn't mean that the pain you caused will just magically go away. But if you choose this life of madness of Don Quixote, you can live by a dream that's greater than yourself, the impossible dream. To fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, to love pure and chaste from afar, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. If any of those strung a chord with you, I think you might be living lower than what you want, lower than the potential that you have for your life. And if I'm going to be honest, we all live this life. We all live short of who we should be. That's why it's called the impossible dream. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't try. It doesn't mean that we should just drop it and quit. There's another book called Winesburg, Ohio. Some people call it the Book of the Grotesque. And it's all about having these ideals and how if you take an ideal and merge it into yourself, you make it something grotesque because you can never live up to that ideal. If you're going to say you want to be an honest person and you take that ideal, I'm going to be honest and tell the truth at all times, you will eventually fail and you will bastardize what honesty really is. If you want to take the ideal of purity and take that and put it as part of you, you will bastardize that too. If you want to take the ideal of being trustworthy, you will end up at a point where you betray someone else's trust, and you will bastardize that as well. So the question is, when you come to these things that you fall short of, do you quit? Do you give up? Or do you keep on fighting? Do you keep on living for something greater than yourself? And that's actually the first step if you want to take on this madness of Don Quixote. Step number one is simply, you have to know who you're going to become, who you want to become. Don Quixote himself, he knew he wanted to be a knight, even though the knights had fallen away long, long ago. And with Aldonza, she had nothing other than being Aldonza the whore. But Don Quixote showed up and gave her a vision of a noble woman, someone who lived a life of honor and purity. Her vision was gifted to her, but yours doesn't have to be. You can choose the ideal version of who you want to be. And we're just going to be honest up front. You are going to bastardize your own ideals. You will fall short of it every single time. But even with the bastardization, you might be better off than where you are now. Even being a bastardized version of a knight was better than being an old man for Don Quixote, living his life waiting to die. Living a bastardized version of Dulcinea was better than staying Aldonza the whore. So step one is decide who you want to be. Claim that identity for yourself and live it out. Every chance you get, choose the answer of whoever your Dulcinea is. If you want to be more honest, come up with this idea of this person in your head, write it down on a note card, keep that note card with you at all times. And guess what? As you go throughout your life and you go throughout your days, you are going to struggle with changing who you are. You'll be like Aldonza, going back and forth, where I could be Dulcinea, but I've made all these mistakes. I could be Dulcinea, but I'm so tired that I'm just Aldonza. But that's not the end unless you let it be. There's an old Native American proverb of, we have two wolves inside of us, one good and one evil. And the question is, which one wins in the end? The one you feed. Well, the same thing is true about these different pieces of yourself. You can create something new, but the one you feed is the one who will survive. It's like your own mental workout. Instead of going to the gym and lifting weights, you have to set up a space where you can create this new identity of yourself and live it out every single day you can. If you go to the gym one day a week, you'll hardly see any progress, even if you do it for several hours. But if you do about an hour a day at the gym, you'll start to see some transformation. You won't be exactly where you want to be yet, but you'll be better. And that's exactly how it works within us and in our spirits. So we have to have this ideal of who we want to be and then push for it every single day. So that's step 2, is live it out. Live it out every single day, as much as you can in a day. The more you can live it out in a day, the quicker your transformation will become. But I'm going to warn you, there is this thing you must be aware of called homeostasis. It's a natural thing within our bodies and a natural thing within our minds and hearts. That we want to return home where our stasis is. We want to stay in our little bubble, where we've been, where we're acting. And guess what? When you start changing yourself, it's really gonna mess with your homeostasis and your body will fight you. Some people will actually get physically sick because of the changes they're making in their own hearts and minds. So this will not be easy, but the question is it better than where you are right now? So on your note card, I want you to write out who you're going to be. And as you go throughout your day, I want you to think and take action. What would Dulcinea do? Or what would Don Quixote do? Your version of it, not necessarily the ones from the book, but for you, what would this ideal version of you do in this situation? And if you do fall back, don't give up. Falling back doesn't mean it's not for you. What it means is you're like most of us. Most of us are going to make mistakes and fall back into our old tendencies. And as my friend Caleb was telling me, you need to show yourself a bit of mercy. That doesn't mean letting your mistakes slide by, but it means sometimes you need to just put that aside and take up your burden, your impossible dream, and keep moving forward. Those negative thoughts will kick in. Those negative thoughts will beat you down. But that's why the lines in the impossible dream mean so much. To fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go. You will have to fight yourself, and you may never make it. But the song continues, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, we must fight for the right, without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause. And the world will be better for this, that one man or woman scorned and covered with scars, who still strove with his last ounce of courage to reach the unreachable star. And this, my friends, is the hope found within madness, claiming something that does not exist and forcing it into reality. This kind of thing, it doesn't work in the physical world. It doesn't work when you're fighting a giant when it's actually a windmill. It doesn't work when you see the shaving basin and think it's a golden crown. But what you can change is who you are. And you can become so much more if you only take up the quest and you fight for it every single day. And for Christians out there, this story is told again and again in the Bible. Abraham, Jacob, Saul, all of these men were not living up to their potential. But instead of Don Quixote giving them a new vision of themselves, it was God. And for those of you who do believe in Jesus and still struggle to love yourself and are settling for less, I want you to know this, that God will not force a new life upon you. Even if you've given your life to Him, it won't matter what God says about you if you refuse to accept the new life He has offered. So, if that's you, I'm going to wrap this up by saying, let go of your past and accept the new identity that you will create. Be mad and create a better world. Thank you. and good night.